What secrets can you find within the cockpits in Gran Turismo 7? Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this one we'll be looking at some of the very interesting things you can find within the cockpits of Gran Turismo 7's race cars. Now in this video we'll be looking at Group 4, Group 3, Group 2 and Group 1 cars. Now I did want to cover Group B as well, however I didn't find anything too interesting in that category unfortunately. So we will be sticking to these four categories in this video. Now we will also be splitting these different things up into 6 different subsections, those being fuel information, time of day, air temperature, lap time information, brake balance and others. So let's get straight into it then with the fuel information, of which there are many cars to have a look at. The first one being the 2018 Nissan GT-R GT3, and as you can see there, it actually tells you how much fuel you have used in the session thus far. And it's the same story with the Subaru BRZ GT300 here, which tells you just below the lap time number, which is in purple. Now the next car, which also has this, is the BMW M6, and we'll just quickly cover some of the numbers that you'll see frequently, those being the water temperature, which is 85 degrees Celsius, and the oil temperature, which is 110 degrees Celsius. Now the first car where we can see the size of the fuel tank is the V12 Vantage. As you can see there, the fuel tank is 106 litres, which is quite big if you ask me, especially compared to the next car we're going to have a look at, which is the VW GTI VGT. Now for a split second there, it had a 55 litre fuel tank capacity, which is just over half of what the Aston Martin Vantage can offer, which is really quite astounding that they would decide to design the car in this way. And as you can see here, towards the end of the outlap, the fuel level drops to below 54 litres, just down to 53 there. Now the next car is the Ferrari 458 Group 3 car, and as you can see there, you can see a sort of miles per gallon calculator just below the gear on the dash, and it took me a while to figure out what this actually could be, but eventually I managed to realise that it was just in miles per gallon, which I didn't really understand. Now here with the AMG GT3, you can see that the fuel tank size is 73 litres, which is very bizarre to have such a specific number. Normally it's just rounded to an even number, such as the Audi R8 Evo, which as you can see has a 120 litre fuel tank capacity, which is quite staggering to be honest. I mean, in terms of ballast it could work quite well in real life, but I really don't understand why in Gran Turismo 7 all of the different cars have differing fuel tank sizes, such as Subaru WRX here, which has a 100 litre fuel tank, though this does correspond quite nicely to the number in the heads-up display. Now the McLaren here, the 650S GT3 car, has a 90 litre fuel tank, which is again not exactly the nicest number. It should just be 100 in my opinion, and it's the same with the Group 4 car. Now it's worth mentioning that a few of the cars actually have the same display across Group 4 and Group 3, although the V8 Vantage is not one of them, as you can see here, with a lot of the info on the left hand side of the normal dashboard, so to speak. Here you can see the Corvette C7 Group 3, which again has the same sort of dashboard as the Subaru WRX, and it's the same here for the Honda NSX Group 3 and the corresponding Group 4 car too, as we'll see later on in the fuel tank size tier list. And another thing that's quite interesting is that the indicator button for right is on the left hand side of the wheel, and the indicator button for the right is on the left is on the right hand side of the wheel. Here the M3 GT has a 100 litre fuel tank, which is roughly par for the course, as we'll see later. And here with the Mazda, you can only see the fuel consumption throughout the session, although I will look into a future video where we can actually calculate the fuel tank size of those cars. Now here the SLS AMG GT3 has a 120 litre fuel tank, which again is quite large, and as you'll see, the joint second largest fuel tank alongside the aforementioned Audi R8. Here the SLS AMG Group 4 has the same fuel tank capacity as the GT3 counterpart, also giving it the biggest fuel tank in Group 4, as you'll see later. The AMG GT3, the 2016 version, actually has the biggest fuel tank in Group 3 with a whopping 125 litres, which does blow my mind, to be honest, a little bit. Here you can see the BMW M4 Group 4, which has got the same dash configuration as the Corvette, the Subaru and the Honda that we've looked at previously. And here you can see the Scirocco here, and just below, or just above, sorry, you can see there for a split second, the fuel tank size is only 60 litres. Now I don't know why VW have elected for such small fuel tanks, but it's what it is. Here the Corvette C7 Group 4 with another 100 litre fuel tank, same as the Group 3 version. And the Audi TT here has the same fuel tank capacity as the Corvette has, at 100 litres. Now this is an interesting one. This is the 2008 Nissan GTR GT500, and it has a 100 litre fuel tank, but it doesn't have a normal decimal place display. As you can see, that only going to 98 litres instead of 98.9 or so on and so forth. Now here you can see the Lexus SC430 GT500, which has a 100 litre fuel tank, although it is displayed with the decimals as it should be in my opinion. And the next car we're going to have a look at is the Jaguar XJR9, which I didn't expect to have this sort of information. Although you can see there it has the fuel tank size in litres and also temperatures, which we'll have a look at later on. Now here with the Sauber Mercedes C9, you can see here that the fuel tank is again 100 litres, although it isn't shown with decimal places, which again I find a bit bizarre, because sometimes you can't really get a great correlation to the heads-up display information. Now here with the Nissan GTR GT500 from 2016, the newer GT500s, you can just see the fuel usage throughout the session. Again, nothing too remarkable, and it's the same with the NSX GT500, as you can see here. Now you can actually see the tyre pressures as well around the gear display there, which I wish you could see properly alongside what's visible on the RCF GT500 with the same sort of fuel used and tyre pressure display there. Now the 911 GT3R is an interesting one because you can actually see how much fuel you've used on the previous lap there, as well as your total fuel usage. And here with the Lexus RCF, it's more the same story, with just showing how much fuel you've used so far in the session. Although this does differ compared to the Ford GT GTE race car, which, as you can see here, tells you your fuel consumption adjusted accordingly in miles per gallon, which does work quite well for someone like me who uses miles per hour, obviously in Britain or in the United States, but I can imagine for non-miles users it can be quite annoying. Now it's worth mentioning there that I was in fuel map 6 and the miles per gallon in map 1 is about 0.3, so just under half of what you could expect in map 6. Now here we've got the Hyundai Elantra N TCR, and as you can see here, it's got a display telling you how much fuel you've used in the current lap and not just overall in the session, which I find very useful. And here we've got the Toyota GT1. Now this car, I was very surprised to have this sort of information. As you can see here with the bright green display, which I would assume has been used in the night in particular. And as you can see, it only tells you how much you've used in the session so far. Although there is something that we'll have to have a look at later on. Now here is the Porsche Cayman GT4. This is the most curious car with fuel consumption data that I've managed to find. And as you can see here, as you come out the pits, the expected fuel mileage is about 210 kilometers until you go empty. Although as you can see here, as you drive more and more, it does eventually adjust to above 260 kilometers, as you'll see as we go through the bus stop. And then if we flick forward a little bit later on, as I've done a couple of laps, you can see it's balanced out about 273 kilometers, which is very much interesting because it does mean that this sort of information is available to us, although Polyphony just don't really want to show it in some particular cases, which I don't really see the vision with. And as you can see here, the Porsche's also got the time of day and the air temperature as well, which we'll have a look at later on as well. But here we're going to have a quick look at the overall rundown for the different cars that we've had a look at so far. And there is a lot to unpack, so you better keep a keen eye out on the different cars we're going to have a look at here. Now, just before we keep going, I'd like to ask if you could subscribe and like the video, because it does help me out quite a lot. But here we have the Group 4 cars, as we're going in chronological order, and as you can see, it's mainly just cars with 100 litre fuel tanks, although there are 2 outliers on each side. And as you can see here with the Group 3 cars, it's a lot more messily distributed, with 4 cars with 100 litre fuel tanks, but a lot of cars above and under that. Now, the Group 2 and Group 1 cars only have 100 litre fuel tanks, at least the ones where you can see the information, which does mean that there isn't really much to have a look at there. The next category we look at is time of day, and as you can see here with the Nissan GTR GT500 in 1999, it does have a clock within the car itself, although unfortunately it's only a 12-hour clock, which isn't ideal, but it does tell you more than just nothing. As you can see here with the Mazda 3 Group 4, which you really have to zoom in for, which is quite annoying. You can see the car in 24-hour time, which makes it a lot easier for myself personally. And it's the same here for the Toyota GR Supra Group 4 car, which also displays the air temperature, which again is quite useful to have in certain scenarios. Now, here is the Porsche Cayman GT4 that we had a look at just briefly, and again you can see the time of day again in 24-hour time. And it's the same here in the Audi RS5, which I didn't expect to find much in at first, if I'm honest, but I think this is quite cool to see. And the next car we're going to have a look at is the Toyota GT1 again, and as you can see here, zooming all the way to the left, I actually didn't notice the first time I was filming for this video. I'd only looked at it once I was editing, and I thought it was quite interesting that there is multiple Group 2 cars with this feature alongside the RCF GT500, which you could just see there below the oil temperature. Now, here is another surprising one, the Porsche 919. Now, unfortunately you can't see the state of charge, which we'll get back to later on, but you can see the time of day there again in 24-hour time. So those are the cars where you can see the time, and thankfully there is representation in every single category, which is good to see. And here with the Lexus RCF again in the Group 3, you can see the air temperature there at 26.1 degrees, which it does fluctuate ever so slightly once you come out of the pits compared to... So essentially you start at 26.2 degrees and after a few seconds it goes to 26.1. It's the same here with the Cayman Group 4, showing the exact decimal percentage, and here you can see what I mean with the temperature change just dropping ever so slightly to 26.1 degrees from 26.2. And here is the Jaguar XJR9 again. I didn't notice this one myself either until I was editing this video, and you can see there actually the air temperature is 26 degrees. So again, some very interesting cars there that I didn't notice actually at first. And here we've got the lap time delta information. So as you can see with the Porsche 911 GT3R, as we go through the first corner you can see the delta change as we slow down. And it's the same with the Ferrari 296 here, you know, going into turn 1, messing with the corner ever so slightly, and the delta actually reflects that. Now here we've got an interesting one, the Porsche 911 RSR, as we just whiz through here at hyperspeed. This car shows you the individual sector compared to your PB sector there. Now this is a very clever way of showing your optimal within the car, which I quite like. As you can see there, the sector was just over a tenth off, and it was reflected by that in the sector timings. Here you've got the Ferrari 499P, which also has a live delta, as you can see just above the gear, and it's also got a predicted lap time, which is very, very good to see. although this is only found on a handful of cars, one of which is not the BMW M Hybrid V8, although you do see a delta there, as well as tyre pressures, which again I wish we could see, but alas we are not able to see those accurately reflected. So the next car is the Porsche 963, which has a similar concept to the Ferrari 499P, where you can see a predicted lap time and your actual overall live delta to your personal best. As you can see here, I made a big mistake on the outlap, so we gained about 2 seconds or so. Now here we have the Peugeot 9X8. Now it's not the clearest, I have to be honest, but if you just see next to the gear on the left hand side, you can see a live delta, just gaining ever so slight amount on the exit terminal, although making a slight mistake of the S's and losing a little bit more time. Now the McLaren VGT Group 1 car here has a similar concept to the 911 RSR. Now a quick side note, I think this cockpit is one of the coolest, if not the coolest, in the entire racing car subcategory. I just think it looks really cool that you're in a spaceship kind of car. And next we've got the brake balance information, as you can see here with the Porsche 911 GT3R, where I was on +5 brake balance, as you can briefly see it, and it was reflective of that with 33.3% from brake bias. Now here with the Ferrari 296, I was on +3 brake balance, and that is reflected with 39.2% front brake balance. Now here with the 499P, as we flick through, you can see the differences reflected within the cockpit, which is again very good to see. And I do wish that some cars that have this information available, but unfortunately static, can be updated in the future to be able to see that in a lot more cars. And as you can see, so that's all of the brake balance cars covered. Now there's only 4 unfortunately where you can see it live, how it affects it in the car. Although now we're going to have a look at some of the other things you can see. So here with the Toyota TS050, you can see the state of charge going down to 69%. And as we speed up and slow down again, as we brake, the battery regenerates. Now this is the Toyota GR10. It does have a pretty much identical sound to the TS050, although you can see that the rate of deployment is much slower in the GR10 compared to the TS050. And as we slow to a halt, you can see the battery regenerating there, which is quite good. And here we've got the Audi R18, which has tyre pressures available, although only to 1 decimal place, and also the state of charge as well there, with 79% after we climb up the hill. Now here's the one car which you can actually see live TC changes on, that is the Ferrari 296 GT3. Although that is now going to be the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like and subscribe, it does help me a lot. And if you have any ideas, please do leave them down in the comments below. Although that is going to be all from me, I hope to see you in the next video, and take care. Goodbye.